The day Napoleon was attacked by rabbits. A myth in the making. History is often filled with tales of great battles, glorious victories, and world-changing events. We think of Alexander the Great conquering Persia, Julius Caesar crossing the Rubicon, or Napoleon Bonaparte standing triumphant over Europe. Yet, hidden in the folds of time are stories so strange, so bizarre that they read more like fables or myths than actual history. One such legend is the day the mighty Napoleon Bonaparte, conqueror of nations, emperor of France and military genius, was defeated not by armies of men, but by an army of rabbits. Yes, rabbits. It sounds impossible, even laughable. But this peculiar event really happened, and over the years, it has taken on the flavor of myth, a story whispered with disbelief, often dismissed as mere folklore, yet grounded in recorded history. To understand this moment, we must first step back into the world of Napoleon himself. The emperor at his peak by the early 1800s, Napoleon Bonaparte had risen from a relatively obscure Corsican soldier to the ruler of much of Europe. His brilliance on the battlefield, his reforms in law and government, and his ability to inspire loyalty made him one of the most powerful men in history. In 1807, after signing the treaties of Tilsit with Russia and Prussia, Napoleon was at the height of his power. France stretched across vast lands, and his reputation was nearly invincible. Victories against coalitions of great powers made him seem almost superhuman. His soldiers revered him, his enemies feared him, and his people adored him. And so, when the time came to celebrate yet another diplomatic success, Napoleon decided to do something unusual: a grand rabbit hunt. This wasn't uncommon at the time. Royalty and nobility across Europe often celebrated events with great hunts, where game was released for the amusement of rulers and their guests. But Napoleon, never one to settle for mediocrity, wanted a spectacle. The rabbit hunt begins. To organize the hunt, Napoleon's chief of staff, Alexandre Berthier, arranged everything with great precision. A field was prepared, refreshments were ordered, and thousands of rabbits were gathered for the hunt. Some accounts say several hundred. Others claim as many as 3,000 rabbits were brought in. The guests assembled in high spirits, expecting a day of leisure, laughter, and easy sport. Napoleon himself, dressed for the occasion, was ready to lead the hunt. The stage was set, the hunters prepared, and the cages of rabbits were opened. That's when the myth was born. The attack of the rabbits, instead of scattering into the fields in fear, as any wild rabbit would. These rabbits turned, cut, and charged. At first, the hunters laughed. It seemed absurd, almost comical, to see fluffy little creatures hopping toward them. But the laughter quickly faded as the rabbits swarmed. Hundreds, perhaps thousands of rabbits bounded straight for Napoleon and his party, not fleeing but advancing with determination. Eyewitnesses described the scene with disbelief. The rabbits reportedly rushed at the emperor's legs, climbed up coats, and swarmed wagons. Napoleon, expecting a dignified hunt, suddenly found himself retreating before an advancing army of fur and whiskers. His guests swung sticks, tried to shoo them away, and stumbled backward in shock. But the tide of rabbits was relentless. The conqueror of Europe was under siege by bunnies. Why did it happen? Like all great myths, this story invites the question, why? Why would rabbits, creatures known for timidity, turn into fearless attackers? The answer lies in the details. Historians believe Berthier, in his eagerness to prepare, had purchased tame, farm-raised rabbits rather than wild ones. These were not animals used to fleeing predators. They were domesticated creatures used to being fed by humans. So when their cages opened and they saw Napoleon and his entourage, they didn't see hunters, they saw lunch. The rabbits charged forward not with malice, but with hunger. Unfortunately for Napoleon, hunger looks a lot like an attack when it comes from a sea of fur-covered bodies racing at you all at once. Napoleon retreats. As the rabbits swarmed, Napoleon reportedly tried to drive them away with his riding crop, but no amount of gesturing or shouting could stop them. The rabbits surrounded the party, some even leaping onto carriages. Eventually, Napoleon and his men were forced to retreat to their carriages and flee the scene. Imagine it. Napoleon Bonaparte, the man who outmaneuvered Europe's greatest generals, who redrew the map of Europe, being chased from the battlefield, not by Prussians, not by Russians, but by rabbits. It was a humiliation, but also a comedy. For a man whose image depended on strength, control, and authority, This strange episode was one best forgotten, and yet, history never forgets. From history to myth over time, the tale of Napoleon and the rabbits has grown beyond its simple facts. It has become a story of irony, the great conqueror humbled by the smallest of foes. Like all good myths, it carries lessons beneath the humor. It reminds us that even the most powerful men are not immune to absurdity, that history, no matter how serious, sometimes slips on the banana peel of fate. It also shows that myths need not be grand or terrifying to endure. Sometimes they survive because they make us laugh. In this way, Napoleon's rabbit hunt has become a kind of folklore, a myth of reversal, where predator becomes prey, and conqueror becomes the conquered. A symbolic tale for those who love symbolism, the story offers deeper meanings. The rabbits, symbols of fertility and abundance overwhelming the emperor, could be seen as nature reclaiming power from man. Napoleon, who bent nations to his will, could not command the simplest of creatures. It is a story of hubris, reminding us that no empire, no matter how vast, is immune to collapse, sometimes not with a bang, but with a hop. The lasting legacy, though Napoleon would go on to fight many more battles, some victorious, others disastrous. The rabbit incident remains one of the most unique episodes of his life. It is rarely taught in classrooms, overshadowed by Waterloo and Austerlitz, yet among historians and storytellers, it endures as a gem of absurdity. It's almost mythological in its humor. Just as Greek myths told of gods being tricked or Norse myths spoke of Loki's mischief, history gifted us this tale, a trick of fate where the mighty were humbled by the meek. The myth lives on today. The story of Napoleon and the rabbit circulates widely on the internet, in books and in conversations that blend history with legend. It sparks laughter, disbelief, and curiosity. Did it really happen? The answer is yes. Did it happen exactly as described? Perhaps embellished, perhaps exaggerated, but that is the nature of myths. What is certain is that Napoleon's rabbit hunt has become larger than life, retold not just as history, but as legend, a call to the present. So the next time you hear of Napoleon Bonaparte, don't just picture him astride his horse at Austerlitz or standing on the battlefield at Waterloo. Picture him just for a moment, fleeing across a field, coat flapping, as an army of hungry rabbits charges behind. Because sometimes history's strangest tales are the ones that endure the longest. And perhaps, in this myth of rabbits versus an emperor, we find a truth greater than strategy or empire, that no one, no matter how powerful, is beyond the reach of absurdity. What do you think? Is this tale of Napoleon's rabbit battle history's funniest myth? Would you like to see more stories where legends blur the line between truth and folklore? Drop your thoughts in the comments, share this with someone who loves odd history, and don't forget to like if you believe even myths of rabbits deserve to be remembered.